Have you?
All right, good evening, everybody. Once again, I want to thank you all for joining us. It seems like a pretty regular occurrence. We are here and excited to bring to you our candidates for our mayor and city council races here in the city of Oakdale. So thank you. And good evening. My name is Mark Cove. I'm the moderator of tonight's event. I am a 23-year resident of the city of Oakdale, as well as a longtime board member of the Oakdale Chamber of Commerce, who is putting this event on for us this evening, and a founder of Oakdale-based Platinum Bank. So I'm really excited and honored to be with everyone here today. And today is all about the opportunity to get to know some of the candidates vying for both mayor and to be members of the Oakdale City Council. All candidates in all three races were invited to attend here today. With us tonight, I'm going to start at my left, which would be the viewer's right, is our existing mayor, 25-year resident of the city of Oakdale, Mayor Paul Ranke, vying to be mayor again. Next, Mr. Jake Ingebrigtsen, and did I get that right?
Ingebrigtsen.
Ingebrigtsen, that's make sure I get the pronunciation right. Jake is running for the 2-year term for Oakdale City Council. And then the next three, we have Mr. Mark Landis. Mark is also a 25-year resident of the city of Oakdale. I think that's going to be a common theme for some. And he is currently appointed to the city council and running for a 4-year term. We have Ms. Colleen Swedberg, a 5-year resident of the city of Oakdale, also running for the 4-year seats here tonight. And then last but not least, Mr. Dallas Pearson, also around 25-year, maybe longer? 32-year resident of the city of Oakdale. So he is also running for the 4-year seat. In the 4-year seat, we have 2 open spots. In all my time covering these council debates, this is the first time I've ever seen we had 2 open seats for a race. At that said, I do want to acknowledge we have 2 retiring council members this session, and that is Ms. Lori Polkerbeck and Bill Rasmussen. Ms. Polkerbeck is with us tonight, and I can tell you on behalf of the Oakdale Area Chamber, she has been unbelievable steward of this city for all the years she has been here, and we thank her for that service and hard shoes to fill for whoever gets that spot. So the way this is going to work, we're going to do 3 separate forums within one forum. We're going to start with the mayor race, and we have a few people that couldn't be here tonight. Mr. Kevin Zabel, who is a current Oakdale City Council member, is running to be mayor, and he couldn't attend this evening. And we have one of our 4-year candidates, Ms. Susan Olson, who couldn't be here this evening as well in the 4-year seat. Jake is unopposed in the 2-year seat, so you get to hear all about him as you prepare to cast that ballot and that vote. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the mayor race, and we're going to ask a series of questions. And on the screen at home, I believe, and as well as here in the audience, there's an ability to send some messages in as well as text some messages in. That text number is 651-230-6565. Again, 651-230-6565. You're welcome to text, and those questions will come up to us, and we will likely edit them, but our chamber board that are present here tonight as well will be fielding some questions and adding to those questions. So without any further ado, let's get going so we can get this in. The first, again, is the mayor race, and so we have some questions first on deck with Mayor Ranke, and we're going to run through a list of questions. And when we conclude with his questions, we'll make sure there's no more fielded from our viewing audience and our audience that's present here tonight. And then we're going to move on to the 2-year race, and then we're going to move on to the 4-year race. So that's how we're going to start. So first up will be Mr. Paul Ranke, current mayor of the city of Oakdale. And first question for you is, please share a little bit about yourself, your history, your qualifications, and why you should be considered to be reelected as mayor.
Well, thank you, Mark. And I want to say also thank you to the Oakdale Area Chamber of Commerce for hosting this tonight. In addition, I'm saddened, or it is too bad that Councilmember Zabel travel schedule didn't allow him to be here. He is a very good council member, and it would have been enjoyable to talk with him. So on that question, I've got 35 years of experience in the construction business, the development construction business. And in that role, it's a profit loss responsibility, and it's project management, and it's a number of things that works towards successful projects. there's a key aspect that seems to be a continuing or a repeating theme on successful projects, and that's around the collaboration skills and bringing people together towards a common goal and then achieving it. So it's been really enjoyable for the last 14 years, 2 last years as the mayor role, 12 years before that, to be able to work with council members and use those skills that I've gained through my business. You know, I've said it several times that I think Oakdale is the jewel of the East Metro, and the reason that I want to run again and to be elected for 4 years is that the number of changes in front of us are going to be significant. Mm-hmm. They could be everything from our staffing. You know, we have a number of people who are currently 25, 26, 30 years a tenure in our organization, and there is going to be change. You know, I don't know when and I don't know who, but I want to be able to help that process such that we can continue the good things going on that the city has established. On the outside, there's a tremendous amount of change coming too. Think about the bus rapid transit, the first bus line that's in a dedicated guideway in the state of Minnesota. I've been able to be involved in this commission for 6 years, working towards bringing that idea to fruition, yet we're getting much, much closer. There's a number of hurdles, though, to keep charge of in order for that thing to happen. So I'm looking forward to finishing that process. The other big one, largest in the Twin Cities right now, is the 206-acre housing development that's being planned and even guided over by the Slumberland headquarters, just north of the Slumberland headquarters. Think about roughly 1,400 total units of housing, maybe 350 single-family and 1,100 multifamily. Mm-hmm. Phenomenal. And the way that we've planned it helped the developer go through the steps of having significant open space, significant trails, mm-hmm. and connectability. It's just going to be a phenomenal, phenomenal neighborhood for the city of Oakdale. So I'm excited about the possibility of being able to serve another 4 years.
Awesome. Mayor, thank you. And I know you answered a little bit of this in your question already for my next question. That is to share with us your personal top priorities if reelected as mayor, but maybe you just want to revisit the first couple or 2 or 3. I know, again, you just answered that, but.
You know, the first one really is to continue the police, fire, and public works services. We have a highly qualified and well-funded set of departments. And at the end of the day, all said and done, I firmly believe that safety and people's feelings of security in the city is job one. So continuing those funding of those 3 departments and the talent that's currently in those departments is critical. So that's number 1 priority. Real close to that is this thing called quality of life. So quality of life includes safety and security and transportation, but it also goes way beyond that to all the enjoyable things that we have been able to do for our city. Much of it is tradition. Think about the Summerfest and the huge festival that we have every year where, you know, thousands and thousands of people get to come and enjoy and relax and participate and laugh and reconnect with their friends. Think about these things like a Touch-A-Truck and the Family Fun inflatables, mm-hmm. you know, all the different festivals that we do. Think about our Discovery Center and the roughly, I recall it being 160 acres of open space at that area. It's just phenomenal. So we are a jewel in the East Metro. Lastly, I think, is the taxes and budgets. Over the last 10 years, we have had relatively stable levy rates, and we haven't gone up or down, a number of, except for a couple of percentage points since that time, even though we've had significant improvements and significant developments occur in our city. So that by itself is another large goal that will be a priority to maintain reasonable budgets and levy rates.
Thank you. Mayor, next question. What do you feel is the biggest challenge the city faces today?
You know, I think the challenge is going to be all around change. You know, I touched on it a little bit in my first comments, but the change is from internal staffing, the change from our environment, the change from our water, the significant issues right now that we're dealing with on the PFCs and the contamination that has occurred in our aquifer. We are so fortunate that 12 years ago under Mayor Sirac, we chose to work with 3M and create this advanced charcoal filtration system to totally eliminate the PFCs from our drinking water. That was a phenomenal piece. And it took a whole bunch of people on the council and in the staff to make that happen, and at 3M. I think the other things would be, you know what? I lost my train of thought.
Well, we'll go on to the next question.
Yes,
if you think
please.
about it, this is going to be the Mayor Renke show for about the next 10 minutes, so we're going to be good. What do you feel is the biggest opportunity for the city of Oakdale?
The opportunity is to create 2 significant new neighborhoods, and to also create this thing, again, called the Gold Line Rapid Transit, the bus rapid transit. Just think about that for a moment. And I've taken some flack from some of my friends who think that this is a wasteful spending exercise. So it's going to be about $500 million, $500 million, to connect downtown Union Depot to Oakdale and then head south to terminate in Woodbury. I think the reality is, though, the money is going to be spent. Mm-hmm. And I have worked exceedingly hard, along with the other commissioners on our staff, to ensure that the money gets spent wisely. Now, a bus rapid transit is going to allow people to move back and forth, and it's another option for people to get to work, to get to recreation, to get to play, to get to shopping. And unlike the express bus that's right now, the express bus leaves in the morning and comes back at night. The bus rapid transit truly is going to be an all-day long service that people can use. The other opportunity or the other challenge, I think, is just around the environment. And again, we are right now negotiating and discussing how to use the settlement money for the 3M settlement money to clean up the water. And that is a process. It's a long process, and there's multiple cities involved. So that will be continued, but I want to reassure the residents of Oakdale that our water is clean, our water is safe, because of the thinking that was done and the work that was done before with that charcoal filtration plant.
Awesome, thank you. What role do you think the city should have in attracting and retaining jobs, and how would an administration directed by your leadership actively solicit new businesses to and retain existing businesses in the city of Oakdale?
It needs to be significant. So Oakdale plays, currently our Oakdale staff, led by Bob Streeter, the Community Development Director, and his staff members, coordinate the approach of business retention, but also when there is an opportunity to get in front of somebody that come to entice them or to ask them to come to Oakdale, they're in the thick of things. We do play a big role. We'll continue playing a big role. One of the things that's just been really enjoyable to watch is that, business, when they choose to come to Oakdale, there's always these number of things that they look at. So obviously the initial stuff is the stability of the management, the stability of the council and the city, the civic leaders. And Oakdale has excelled at longtime managers that are very talented and also very experienced city leadership. But we also know that once businesses get here, they need places for their employees. In the housing stock that we have in Oakdale, we don't just let it sit. We're not letting it just continue to get old. We have a robust rejuvenation program, and we offer and we invite homeowners to take advantage of loans, to take advantage of expertise, to make sure that their homes are kept up to good quality and are very functional. We're also plugged in tightly with our education, grade school, public school, private school, secondary education, and thank goodness, because again, businesses need talented people we have a large supply of talented young people and also very, very talented adults. And so that the labor pool for Oakdale, as businesses look at where they might want to locate, I think we score exceedingly high on that mark. So long story short, very important that a city takes an active interest and plays an active role in attracting and retaining businesses, and we certainly do that.
Thank you.
But Mark, before you go though, your organization, the Oakdale Chamber, another example of how we are structured as a community to make it easy and good for business to find out information, to connect with people, and be collaborative in order to make a good business decision for themselves.
Awesome, thank you. And I got about 10 more minutes for our conversation with you, Mayor. So here's one more question, or of the few. What do you feel is the best thing you can do to improve the business climate within the city?
I think we have an obligation to improve the business climate by being reasonable in money. When we do our budgets, reasonable in our budgets and our taxes. When council has done the budget planning in the past years, much of the focus is around what it's going to cost an average resident, an average homeowner. And there is a significant amount of time spent with that. We also then talk about what is it really going to cost, or what's it going to take for a business owner to stay here. So example, if there's an increase because of a contract, a union contract, that's going to increase our annual budget by, call it 1%, so call it $300,000. That's an implication to the homeowner, of course, but it's also an implication to the business owner or business manager. So the business manager typically doesn't have a vote. It's primarily homeowner residences. And when that business manager has to sell 300 more Subway sandwiches just to break even because of that increase that we collectively imposed, that's a tough nut. And what is it for that retailer what are they getting? And what are the benefits of paying that much more money to stay here in Oakdale? So that's a high sensitivity that we take very seriously, all our council members, and we will continue to do so.
Awesome. What is your strategy to address public safety concerns for the city of Oakdale?
I love Chief Sullivan's approach. Chief Sullivan has been our chief of police for, he's one of our longtime senior members, so over 25 years. But he taught me this approach about the broken window theory. And so in general, it goes something like, when there's a broken window and you observe it, you can do two things. You can attend to it, fix it, or you can ignore it. Many times, by fixing it, you're going to solve a problem and bring to conclusion that element. If you happen to ignore it, chances are you might go back the next week and there's another broken window. Chances are you go back the week following and there's garbage in the yard. Chances are you go back a month later and the shingles might be off. And so it's just a cascading thing that, his theory sounds so simple, but when you take care of the small things and you take care of people and the needs that they bring to the table at the time, it seems to make the community better. It seems to increase the amount of respect. It seems to increase the respect, I think, for police and residents and police officers to make this community better. So it's a cool, simple theory.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Aside from the BRT, what do you feel is the biggest transportation issue facing the city of Oakdale over the next 5 years?
I think there's probably two. One is the imminent construction of the bridge on the north side of town. This is the new bridge on Hadley going over Highway 36 up by Mills Fleet Farm. So that's going to take place, and that's going to be a significant event because first, it's going to cause disruption for a year. Second, it's going to eliminate, a positive thing, it's going to eliminate another set of streetlights on 36. So people heading east and west will have a quicker access to their business or their home. And then also, it's going to be the first that has 3 roundabouts. Now, I see Commissioner Karwowski out in the audience, and with the county, it's going to be something to get used to for myself and for our residents. truly 3 roundabouts. But that was the only way, after significant research and exploration and engineering about how do we get this bridge to work and still maintain access to 36 and 694. So it's been done well, and I think it's going to be an exciting project to celebrate when it's done. Lastly, I've talked about bridges and I've talked about the bus, but just our roads. Think about how irritating it is when you're driving in other communities and you're experiencing these potholes or this very, very rough streets. Annually, and for as long as I've been involved, it's been 8 to 12 miles that we take care of. Sometimes it's a full reconstruction, including sewers and water and private utilities. Many times it's just what they call an overlay, taking down several inches and then repaving it to make it smooth again and good for another 25 years. So we do that year in and year out to make sure that our roadways are keeping up with our people.
Awesome. Next question, in fact, it's a duplicate, one we got from our audience as well as on my list, and that is, do you support the City of Oakdale establishing a minimum wage?
Minimum wages are really complex. Short answer is no. And the reason is that businesses, as they are looking at their own goals in their own businesses and the product or services that they are contemplating selling and marketing, at the end of the day, they've got to make their own decision about how to attract their own people, how to attract highly qualified employees, and keep them. They can't have a revolving door, otherwise their customer service really starts getting strained. If they choose to pay more, wonderful. If they choose to pay at a competitive rate and have additional services or benefits, wonderful. But it's not up to, I don't believe it's up to the city to mandate any type of a minimum wage, because it really has to be dictated by the goals and wishes of that business owner.
Awesome. Got a couple more questions, one from our audience and the last one on our prepared sheet, and that is, if budget was no issue with an unlimited amount of available funds, what would you do for the City of Oakdale?
It'd be just a huge kick. And we even touched on this at one of our offsites, one of our council offsites, where we were each given a big check to spend. So I think about parks. Think about paving the parks for trails and making them better. Think about our streets and our trails and our sidewalks. Think about our lighting boards and our scoreboards and our youth recreation. If money was no option, Chief or Officer Bill, and I'm going to lose his last name, but Bill is our diversion officer. So we have had so much success in working with kids who have gotten into trouble, and then Officer Bill goes in and explains that, okay, we have a couple of choices. You can get involved, like you should, possibly with the court system because of the infraction that was caused, or you can get involved in this diversion program and get redirected and taught that there are other options. If it was a choice that you made to steal or a fight or something that you chose to do, there are other different ways of thinking about a problem. So if I had unlimited funds, I think I'd expand that program, 100-fold, because it makes so much more sense to keep kids out of the court system and out of the potential jail system and into a much, much more productive environment.
Great. Last question again from our audience, viewing audience. If you mentioned in your opening statement about collaboration and that it's very important, is there an opportunity for collaboration that we might not be exploring yet and that maybe doesn't exist today?
There's got to be. When I think about some of the things, I think about a relationship that has become better, I think, with the landfall, our neighboring community to the south and west. The relationship, the conversations have been much better because of the bus rapid transit discussions. Is there something we can do down there? I don't know. I think about jointly improving our recreational enrollment processes, and we've toyed with that a little bit with the city of Maplewood, trying to figure out how do we have a central clearinghouse for people to access and then have much, much more opportunity between our two cities. We just haven't been able to figure it out. So those were a couple things that come to mind.
Awesome. Mayor, thank you for your answers. There'll be a chance to hear from Mayor Renke at the end as we give everybody a chance for a conclusion. We're only 5 minutes over our little time schedule, so that's not so bad. We're going to now go to our two-year council race. Next up, so it's just going to be almost a similar format here until we go through the back and forth with the three, but it's going to be Mr. Jake Ingebrigtsen for the two-year race, and I've got some questions for Jake. Again, the viewing audience can text in questions, 651-230-6565. And so to start, get back into my order here somewhere. Please share a little bit about yourself, your history, your qualifications, and why you should be considered to be elected to the city council.
Thank you, first of all, for moderating this tonight. Thanks to the chamber as well. I've been a resident of Oakdale for about 2.5 years. I have 3 young kids, so I'm definitely, if I'm elected, going to eat my own cooking, so to speak. The main kind of point I want to make to everybody tonight is I'm doing this because I want to make a difference and I want to continue the good quality of my life, or quality of life for my family and the residents of Oakdale. It is our plan to live here for the rest of our lives. So I want everybody to know that any decision I make is going to be with that in mind. With that being said, my educational background's in finance. I have kind of the unique, maybe a little bit unique description of I've worked in corporate America and been a business owner, and now I am a business owner. So I can definitely relate to why it's important to have businesses in town, successful businesses that provide jobs and steady income for our residents. As far as number one priority for me and why I want to be on the council, I really want to make sure that we're fiscally responsible through budgeting, taxation, at the same time making sure that critical services are funded fully. That'd be police, fire, and also making sure that schools have the resources they need from a safety standpoint. And I think that's about it.
Good. All right, next question. I know you touched on your top priorities, but in addition to what you just mentioned there, what would be a few other top priorities if elected to the city council?
As I stated, public safety is huge, low crime, and obviously we could do that, making sure that police, fire have the resources they need. Another important aspect is making sure that we're taking advantage of the 3M project and the available amenities that may provide. That's going to be a huge opportunity for Oakdale, and I hope that we're able to take full advantage. Parks, baseball fields, walking trails, and that sort of thing. And the third thing is making sure that we're looking out, making sure that we're providing an opportunity for prosperity for both our residents and our businesses in town. I'm going to take a two-pronged approach there. Number one, budget responsibly, and number two, making sure that we're thinking about the needs of the business owners all the time.
Awesome. Thank you, Jake. What is the biggest challenge you see the city facing today?
Biggest challenge I think Oakdale faces is our aging housing stock. Fortunately, as the mayor stated, we do have programs in place that allow funding opportunities for people to upgrade their homes. One thing I would like to see us do a little bit better with that is maybe market it a little bit better. I had lived here a little over 2 years before I was made aware of it. So I would definitely like to see that. And I also would be open to any opportunity to expand that.
Awesome. Thank you. What do you feel is the biggest opportunity for the city of Oakdale?
On this, I definitely agree with the mayor. I think the 3M development behind the Slumberland headquarters is just a huge opportunity. I believe it's 1,140 housing units that we could see. It's just a win-win-win. Along with the amenities, it'll be a huge boost for property taxes. And I do want to commend at this point the current council. I think they've done a terrific job with that plan. And I'm excited to be a part of that going forward.
Awesome. What role do you think the city should have in attracting and retaining jobs, and how would an administration, including you in the collective, actively solicit new business to and retain existing businesses in the city of Oakdale?
Well, this is an opportunity for me to commend staff for doing a good job. Bob Streeter in particular, I think, has done a really good job recruiting businesses and retaining them as well. As a council, I think we really need to focus on trying to limit regulation wherever possible. Obviously, you know, there's some common sense ordinances that we need to have in place so that the quality of life of the residents near the businesses, for example, isn't affected. But I do really think that we really need to think hard about regulation.
Got it. So maybe this leads into the next question. What do you feel is the best thing you can do to improve the business climate within the city?
As I said, keep regulation low, not to be redundant. And the other thing, obviously, as the mayor also stated, is to keep taxes as low as possible. And and it's really a fine line, because I did have somebody ask me recently in my neighborhood what I thought about the relationship between commercial and homestead property taxes, and I really want to make sure that there's a fair balance there between. And I don't want any resident to ever think that, we're tipping the scales too far in one direction.
Thank you again. And the question, and the audience might pick up on this, but the questions are very similar. In fact, if not close to identical. That's intentional. Do you support the city of Oakdale establishing a minimum wage?
I do not. Again, as the mayor said, it's a very complex issue, but to summarize, basically, if we're gonna attract and retain businesses in Oakdale, we don't want to put ourselves on a playing field where we're lower. We want to be at least level, if not above. And I think a high minimum wage would definitely put us at a huge disadvantage. And I do believe that, personally, I believe that's just an issue that the state should deal with. To kind of, if you're going to do it for somebody, you need to do it across the board. That way, it's not going to negatively impact some businesses, not others.
Very good. What would be your strategy, if it was yours and yours alone, to address the public safety concerns for the city of Oakdale?
Just make sure that they're adequately funded, make sure they have the resources they need. I do know that there's a plan is in the works here over the next couple of years to add on to City Hall here and basically create a new place for the police department. And there has been discussions about a training facility in that. And I do support that for the most part. Obviously, funding for that's going to be an issue. But especially in the current climate we're in, I think that we need to give our police officers everything they need to be successful.
Got it. I know you heard Mayor Ranke talk a lot about this, but I want to ask a quick question about the Gateway Corridor. What are both the biggest positives and negatives about a dedicated BRT line?
Well, obviously the positive is anytime you provide another option of transportation, inherently more people are going to benefit. And the negative, obviously, is funding. And the tricky part here is going to be if the city of Oakdale personally is going to be held responsible for paying for some of it. That's going to be a really hard pill for me to swallow if that's the case. And I've also had people ask me up to this point if I support that, and the answer is it depends. It's just we really need to have all the funding information, I think, before we can make a good, educated decision. Now, would it be good for Oakdale? Absolutely. It would be great to see that area developed over at 4th Street and Helmo there. But again, I think it all comes down to dollars and cents.
Got it. Other than the BRT, what do you see the biggest transportation issues facing the city of Oakdale over the next 5 years?
I think that the 36 and Hadley interchange that is coming here in the next couple of years is definitely the biggest challenge in that funding is really a huge issue for that. at a recent council work session, the city of Oakdale was slated to be on the hook for, I think, $5.5 million, was it? And I'm really hoping we can find a way to drastically reduce that number.
Very good. If budget, you remember this question, if unlimited funds were in your pocket and budget was no issue, what would you want to do for the city of Oakdale?
The big thing that comes to mind for me is to provide a community center. I've been to the community center in Shoreview, and I can't tell you what it would be like to have one in Oakdale. Obviously, it'd be expensive, but if I got an open checkbook, that would be the first thing I would do. You know, the Discovery Center, I think, to a smaller extent provides that, but, you know, it would be nice to have an indoor pool, splash pad, rooms for people to have parties, things like that.
Awesome, thank you. We have a question coming from our remote audience, and you know, you serve right now on the Planning Commission as its chair, so given your knowledge of the city and its current budget, is there one area of the budget you feel strongly could be approved? And what area would this be, and what is your recommendation for improvement?
And I will concede, I'm not as familiar with the budget because I'm not currently on the council. At this point, really, I don't see anything, and I'm saying that based on the fact at how reasonable taxes are in this city. I lived on the east side of St. Paul previous, and my house here is valued double at that, and property taxes are within $50 of each other. So I think that, again, I commend the current council and current staff on the job they've done. They've done a terrific job.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Well, that's the list. We're now back on time schedule here, so I appreciate that. We're not, again, just like we were with the mayor, we're going to hear from Mr. Ingebrigtsen again at the end as we have a chance to do some closing comments. So now we're on to the three of the four candidates here tonight that are vying for the four-year seat. And they are in no specific order sitting up here, but we're going to use that order for ease while we're up here. And so we're going to run these list of questions, and this time we'll ask the question and it'll chance to bounce to all three, and then we'll ask the other question. We'll go in the reverse order. So now we're on to that part. So I'm going to start with would be the viewer's right, my left, and that is Mr. Mark Landis. Please share a little bit about yourself, your history, your qualifications, and why you should be considered to return to the City Council.
Okay. How much time did you say I have?
Thank you for your answer. Okay, now.
Yeah.
All right.
Moving along.
Good evening. Again, my name is Mark Landis, and I'd like to also thank the Chamber for hosting this event every year, and Mr. Cole for your moderating of this. Thank you guys so much. To start off, I've lived in Oakdale since 1993. I've been married to my wife, Chris, for 33 years this month. I have 2 adult children that are both graduates of North High School, 2 grandchildren and 1 more coming. I've been on the council here since 2017. My work day is a financial advisor, and I've been in the same company for 26 years. Graduated from St. Cloud State University with a degree in business. And my experience within the city of Oakdale and other areas has been essentially, as I mentioned, a current city council member. Also on the Environmental Management Commission as a city council liaison, which has been extremely interesting and educational. And I've been on the Oakdale Economic Development Commission since 1995. And was retired from that in 2016, but I served as chair for 14 years, which was an incredible experience dealing with business retention, expansion, and so on. So it was really cool. I was on the Citizens Advisory Commission for our school district, ISD 622, strategic planning in 2016. And I've been a community advisor for the commission for the City of Oakdale and Comprehensive Plan 3 different times, and also numerous other subcommittees within the City of Oakdale. That's it.
Great. What would be, Mr. Landis, your top priorities for the city?
Top priority has been echoed already, but public safety is the biggest thing in my mind all the time. I work a lot in schools, so it's near and dear to my heart with what's going on in the education system on the importance of security. And I think our police department has worked very, very well with the school system along with the fire department, educating and just really being more seen as a mentor with the school system, not as an enemy, but as a friend. So public safety is number one.
Thank you, and I already blew my own plan here. So I'm going to ask these two first questions together as we go. So Ms. Colleen Swedberg, so first question is share a little bit about yourself, your history, your qualifications, why you should be considered to be elected to the city council, and your top priorities. We'll mix that into the question.
Okay.
We'll pretend that never happened.
All right, all right. Good evening, and as I said, my name is Colleen Swedberg. I'm running for the Oakdale City Council, the 4-year term. I'm one of the newbies, apparently. I was born and raised in Washington County, so this includes here, the last 5 years I've been living in Oakdale, and of those 5 years, the last 4+ years, I've been serving on the Park and Rec Board, and currently am the vice chair. I have been a part of so many exciting projects, and what everyone is talking about here is the exciting projects to come, and so that's what we all want to be a part of, I think. But I've been a part of the boardwalk on the nature preserve, the off-leash dog park, and the pickleball courts. In addition, I served on the 2040 Comprehensive Vision Planning Committee for Oakdale. And besides that, I have over 20+ years management business experience in developing, implementing, and keeping on track for budgets and implementing other projects. All of these things combined, I think I'm a viable candidate for city council.
Awesome.
My priorities, I think we share a lot of the same priorities here. I think we're on the same page on a lot of issues, so that would be helpful in being on the city council, because we could work together as a team versus being adversarial. So, like Mark is saying and others, is public safety, I think, is number one. And I think our area has done a great job. I've also heard about and been a part of that police department expansion, and I think there's lots of opportunities for that.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you for those answers. Now on to Mr. Dallas Pearson. Same two questions together. Make up for my mistake. A little bit about yourself, your history, your qualifications, why you should be considered to be elected, and your top priorities.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll also extend my thanks to Mark and to the OACC for doing this every year. It's been a pleasure to do it last 2 years with you. I've been a resident of Oakdale for 32 years and within a mile of Oakdale since 1973, so I have a long history here. I love living in Oakdale, and I deeply want to help assure its continued success and strive to assure it continues to be the city where we can live and work to our fullest. I'm one of the few that have had the privilege of both living and working within Oakdale during most of my time here. I graduated from Iowa State with degrees in math and physics, continued studying with a degree in electrical engineering and an emphasis in computer science at the U of M. I also had a concentration in accounting, which got me my first job at General Electric in their financial management program. But I shortly after that jumped at the chance to return to the Midwest and come back here to home. I came back to work at 3M in Macon, and now I'm retired from Kodak after 42 years. I've worked in a wide variety of areas in technologies and research, technology assessment, project management. Through it all, I found that the best way to accomplish anything was to work together as a team of diverse people of different areas, different needs to achieve our shared goals. That's the one way of getting things done, is to work together. It's a lesson I learned well. I've been attending the city council meetings for several years, and I've developed a passion for Oakdale city government. The last couple of years, I've been serving on the planning commission with Jake, and as a volunteer videographer to help bring you some of your commission meetings, and also on the Citizens Advisory Committee. My first experience in city government was through my father when I was a kid. He was the mayor of Barrington, where I grew up, and I also worked on the city public works department for 2 summers, cleaning sewer lines and patching roads. Fun tasks. I would be honored to serve the people of Oakdale, and I believe my experiences would serve you well. Top priorities, as everyone, is public safety. The people just have to feel safe in their homes and businesses. Police, fire, ambulance, those services are paramount for our city. Roads, as Paul had said, we have a good program for keeping the roads in good condition, which a lot of cities don't. I can recall growing up in Barrington, you'd cross into Cook County, and the moment you crossed over from Barrington into that area, you'd hit all the potholes. Responsible budgeting and planning, keeping taxes low. It's the first statement people make to you when you come to the door. Keeping my taxes low. Keeping a balance between the needs and wants to assure that we keep the budget in control for the benefit of the taxpayers and the businesses that are in our community, not to take them for granted as a money bank that we can constantly hit. The other one is the revitalization program that was touched on earlier. A lot of homes, if you walk around, you see a lot of them are in disrepair, and people are having a hard time being able to keep up with it. And the city instituted a program, Neighborhood Preservation and Enhancement Initiative, and I went back and checked on how that's working out, and it's been a great program for people. A total of 232 households have been helped to do their improvements and make their homes look more livable and better for themselves and for the city. So it's a great program. And I'll save the next one for your next question.
All right, well, we're sticking right with you, Mr. Pearson, because now we're going backwards. And I'm going to try to stick to one question this time and not piggyback. Well, you know what, actually, I take that back. I'm going to ask these two together because I think they go hand in hand. What do you feel the biggest challenge the city faces today, and what do you feel is the biggest opportunity for the city?
Encouraging new businesses and helping local businesses to expand so that people have a place to live and work here in Oakdale. Like I said, I was fortunate enough to be able to both live and work here, and I really enjoyed working at 3M, moving to Amation, staying in my home and being here for 42 years. We have in the vicinity of 600 businesses that are here. We need to have a stronger base and increase that. Watching over the budget for major expenses like the bridge over Hadley that was mentioned, that's stretching our budget, but then on top of that, we have a bridge going over Century that's going to be falling right on its heels. And we've got the budget in place. Sue does a great job working on that, Susie Warren and the council, and that Century Bridge is going to be coming right on the heels, stretching the budget. So I'll pass it to the next one on that. Oh, opportunities you wanted. The 3M site, as mentioned, is a great opportunity for building and life cycle housing to go from new people moving in, newlyweds, young people, singles, up to retirees that may have to move on to a single level house. My wife and I are facing that possibility in the next few years myself. And then completing the walkways and trail systems, giving mobility to people around the city and exercise opportunities for people my age.
Awesome. Mr. Pearson, thank you. Real quick before I get to Ms. Swedberg, with the same question, again, thank the audience for their participation. I am fielding quite a few text and stuff from the audience. I'm trying to weed it in if I can, and then if I can't find a way to put it in to the set of questions, I'll try to ask it separately. But just want to remind we will be refraining from questions of a personal nature, and there's a few of those that have come across my screen, and we'll be avoiding those questions. Ms. Swedberg, same thing to you. What do you feel is the biggest challenge the city faces today, and what do you feel is the biggest opportunity for the city?
I think the biggest challenge we have right now is we have so many projects, and it's going to be hard to choose which ones we support and which ones we can afford, because we don't want to tax the residents or the businesses too hard. So we have to be careful about stretching our budgets and getting the funding wherever we can to help reduce that. Because I'm a big proponent of not spending money foolishly and going into debt too much, so for anyone, including the city. So with that being said, one of the biggest opportunities is to help the businesses. Piggyback off of what Dallas said about the revitalization project, we did a wonderful job, the council did a wonderful job on that area off of 10th Street, with the Hy-Vee and the Cub and everything. That's a beautiful area. We need to continue that on maybe Highway 14, County Road 14, at Old Highway 5. So in that area, we could grow the businesses better there, I think.
Awesome. So that covers challenges and opportunities at the same time. So, Mr. Landis.
Okay, thank you. I think that the top challenges that we do have coming in front of us is the upcoming retirements of a number of our staff members that have been with the city for a long time, have a long history, and have guided us in the correct direction. Hats off to Chief Sullivan and Fire Chief Jeff Anderson, Susie Warren, and all of the other department heads that we'll forget a couple of the names, but they've done a tremendous job in keeping us on track with everything. But I think the other components really are challenging. The development has been mentioned, just keeping everybody informed with what's going on, and also along the lines of economic development is business retention, expansion, including in that top priority would be good paying jobs. I think the opportunities that we have as a city working together is the bus rapid transit, which I believe is going to allow people to commute in and out as we need to get more jobs in the city. There's obviously a huge shortage of jobs today. I believe the 3M property is going to be a wonderful, wonderful development. I live right up by there, and it's going to offer a lot of amenities in there. The other is going to be, again, the Hadley 36 Bridge, which again has been communicated. It's going to give some good access in and out. And we worked really hard to make sure that we got what we were going to need as a city to be able to connect the northern part of the city for police, fire, and so on with all of the other areas. I think the other part that hasn't been mentioned, with the bus rapid transit, the connection from Helmo Avenue entering into Woodbury, so we have some workability getting in and out of the city right there, will also relieve a little bit of the traffic congestion. Another one is that the 694, 494, 94 corridor is going to be getting some much needed work on that so that we don't have traffic jams at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, which is very frustrating. But it'll be much better. It'll give us a lot more easement. So again, the big thing when I've been talking to people is all worried about traffic. And the more we can go and try to partner and make that work in a fiscally responsible way, I'm all for it. And then finally, I think the parks and trails. We've got 29 parks, and connecting all those trails and the upkeep is extremely important because that's a huge amenity that we have in the city of Oakdale as a selling point. And so I think we've got a lot of opportunities, and I only mentioned a number of them, but there are many, many more we could go and talk about. So again, challenges is going to be the retirements as that comes along in the next few years within the city workers and the development projects, and I won't go through the opportunities again, but the future is bright for Oakdale. We just need to think forward.
Thank you, Councilman Landis. We're going to stick with you, and I'm going to stick with this newfound format of combining a few questions. It works good for the ability for transition. So that said, I'm gonna probably put 3 in the bucket here. And first off, what role do you think the city should have in attracting and retaining jobs? And including you in the collaborative, how would you actively solicit new business to retain existing business to the city of Oakdale? The piggyback question there is, what do you feel the best thing you can do to improve business climate in addition to about retaining jobs and attracting business to the city of Oakdale? So with Councilman Landis, we'll start with you.
Thank you. First and foremost, I really want to thank the Economic Development Commission. I had the honor of being involved with that for a long time. We've got a terrific staff with the community development led by Bob Streeter, Linnea Grundhofer-Bartels, Jen Hasselbrook, and Emily Shively. They all work together, and they've really done a great job. When it comes to attracting jobs, the great part about Oakdale in one respect is that we've got some hidden gems. And when I say that, look at our Forefront Technology Center. That is a huge campus. We've got great partners with Slumberland out there. In all of the communications I have, the building itself sells it. People know that it's a huge opportunity with it right there. It's got a great location, 694, 14. And so I think we've got all those pieces there, but we're also connected with the Workforce Readiness Task Force and all of the other components that, we are known for what we have. And it's a very good thing. So retaining those, we started a program a number of years ago. It was just called, again, Business Retention Expansion, where the Chamber and also the Economic Development Commission, through the community development area, went out and we'd go out and meet and communicate with the business owners, just really to go out there and say, what's going on? What can we do to help you? Are you looking to expand? Do you need some things that we might be able to get it? And the purpose for that was really to go and get that on the front end, because it's by the time you get there and the business owner is saying, hey, I'm running out of space, it's already too late because they've already been looking around the community. And we had that with a recent business here, and they just couldn't find space. So if we can get out there with them right away, it's extremely important to get that. So again, taxes, obviously communicating with them, but offering and finding out what their real needs and wants are. And I think that's been very effective over the years that we've been doing that.
Thank you, Councilman Landis. Same two questions to Ms. Swedberg.
Thank you. Attracting jobs, and retaining, improving, all those things are critical. We need to partner with the schools and try to promote and get the kids interested in the jobs that Oakdale has to offer. We could offer things like have a manufacturing day where the kids go out and go to various different manufacturing places in Oakdale, so they learn what Oakdale has to offer and some of the skills that they would need or could get to get these good jobs, like welding. There's other things besides just college that pay very well. There's X-ray technicians, so they can read film, or now they have digital film, digital X-ray. So if we can get some of the kids involved and get excited, and then the schools could help offer some of those classes to get them more ready for those kind of jobs. So I think that's plays an important role. So I think we are trying to retain jobs here and just keep improving the favorable business climate I think we have here. Awesome. Okay?
Thank you. And same question, I'll gladly repeat it. Mr. Pearson, it's been a while since you heard it read, if you want. but-
I'll take that up, take you up on that.
Okay, so what role do you think this city should have in attracting and retaining jobs? How in a collaborative situation would you actively solicit new business to and retain existing business in the city of Oakdale? And what's one thing or a few things you can do to improve the business climate here within the city?
Complex issue, and as always, following after Mark and Colleen is going to be difficult on this one, but I'll have to repeat a couple of them. Business retention visits to help improve communications between businesses in the city is key. As Mark said, relocation opportunities for expansion within Oakdale, keeping the businesses that we have and enjoy here within Oakdale by helping them with relocation opportunities. City Council should always be present in developing a relationship with the business community, a relationship with the Chamber to hear the issues at the OACC meetings. Business can help in many ways in jobs for adults and kids through Washington County Workforce Center, which is a good collaboration of partners bringing the goal to bring job seekers and businesses together to help them meet their needs through training and other opportunities. Welding classes that Colleen mentioned. I was at a forum that, especially in rural areas for schools that can't afford welding equipment and all the extra accessories to do those kinds of shop training classes. Mm-hmm. They developed a truck, and the state, I think, supports some of this. This truck goes from school to school with the welding equipment, puts on the classes, teaches the kids, and helps in those training opportunities. And I'd certainly want for Oakdale to be a participant in that kind of an opportunity for the kids.
Great.
The last one, things to improve the business climate. The one that comes to mind is, again, the same one I brought up 2 years ago. I have a friend up in White Bear who experiences a lot of problems with regulations. He runs a restaurant, two of them side by side, with a corridor behind. He has 7 regulatory agencies that have to come in on his restaurant and oversee one in particular making a fish sandwich. One of the regulatory agencies came in and says, no, you can't do that, and stood there while he had to dump every one of those sandwiches in a garbage can. That seems a bit excessive to me. That kind of regulations, I don't think that happens in Oakdale, and I certainly wouldn't want it to.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. And the next question is going to go to you, and we're going to zip back the other way. This one is going to be single, but you've heard it asked of the other two in front of you, and that is, do you support the city of Oakdale establishing a minimum wage?
No. I'll elaborate on that, but it's plain and simple no. It brings up the whole issue of preemption. And one of the concepts that, in preemption that was brought up before were different agents, levels of government, city versus state versus federal, was on cigarettes, the warning label on cigarettes. And all that did is create huge amounts of controversy, massive lawsuits, and I don't really think it helped the people either smoking or non-smoking a bit. So having different areas of the governmental structure impose different rules on things like minimum wage, no, I don't support it at all.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Ms. Swedberg, same question.
No. I think the marketplace needs to drive the wages so businesses can attract and retain the best employees as possible. Businesses need the flexibility to handle their situations as they seem best fit. So some businesses may not be able to afford to pay as much as others, but then maybe they can offer flexible work hours, or they can allow people to work from home, or so the market needs to drive that. We need to be here to support the market.
Thank you. Guessing, Councilman Landis, you remember the question, so go right ahead.
Right on. I do not support minimum wage. I believe it is up to the individual business owner to make that decision. If they want good employees, they're going to have to pay for it. And in a market that we're in right now, with a limited pool of employees available or those seeking jobs, it should be up to the individual. That's a state issue. It's not a local government issue to go and do it. I would also dovetail on that. It's no different than the selling of cigarettes to minors. It's a state issue. Mm-hmm. So I believe that it's up to the individual business owner. It's not a decision that we need. Minimum wage is up to them.
If I could add just one thing to that. If you listen to the radio and the TV today, you actually heard a lot of reports about minimum wage. The minimum wage, I can't remember the store that's bringing it to $15 because they can't find workers. So they're bringing them in at $15 an hour because they have to in order to get them. There was another, Walmart was bringing them in at $12 an hour, which is a raise at Walmart. And one of the reasons they're bringing them in is because they want to get the people in-house because they can't find employees. That's a huge issue that's going forward now.
Yeah, in Dallas, that was Amazon, by the way.
It wasn't?
Amazon.
Oh, thank you.
Amazon, that'll affect 300,000 workers.
I knew, Jake, that you'd know that.
All right, so this question, Councilman Landis, now we're back on. This one is, what is your strategy to address public safety concerns for the city of Oakdale?
Okay, strategy to address public safety. I think we've all heard it. The mayor's mentioned it already once, and again, I was involved in that when Chief Sullivan talked about the broken window theory. And that really and truly is what happens. If you ignore it, the problem just gets bigger and bigger. I think the other part of it is that we need to also look at neighborhood revitalization and get people involved looking at how do I get my house looking better, working through that. It might sound crazy, but if people are keeping things up to date on their household properties and so on, it tends to go and keep pushing people away from it. But again, it's working with the school system like the police department has been doing for a number of years. They get involved with the kids at the very early start to keep them on the right track. And again, it's the police department here in Oakdale has also been involved in their STARS event, which is working with the DECA program. Again, STARS event is kind of congratulating the students in their high school years to a great big event. And the city supports it financially. And it's been a win-win situation to just be, again, like I mentioned earlier, be out there working with the kids and having the police department be a friend not the enemy. And so it lets these kids go and be able to work with the police on issues that they have going on in their households, but it gets them kind of as a mentoring type program. I was recently involved at the North High School first game, and we had a event there, and it was freshmen and sophomore students on the football program mentoring with seniors and even graduating students to get them on the right track in the early stages of their high school career. And we had about 300 and some kids there. We served 450 hot dogs, and it was just really a good community event and try to get the kids on the right track. So again, there are a number of different things, but the police department is reaching out to students and working on that part of it there. We've got great community officers that are out and about in the city as well. The Neighborhood Watch program, which has been initiated a number of years ago now, has been extremely successful, and that's getting neighbors to work within their own neighborhood to know one another and reach out to each other and watch others' properties. So it's been a huge benefit there. So the city has been doing a lot, and if you want to, I would encourage people to go to the City of Oakdale website. There are a number of different things on there that you can communicate with that you may not want to confront anybody else with and have your name associated, but check out the city website. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Landis. Ms. Swedberg, Public Safety.
Yes, I agree with a lot that Mark is talking about. The police department has been very good about getting the kids involved and reaching out to them. We need to offer programs and activities for these kids to do something, offer positive things and positive reinforcement. A lot of them have not had that in their home, so it helps if they have somebody there to mentor them to grow and stuff. So also agreeing with that keeping up the homes is a good thing. Several years ago, I volunteered for a paint-a-thon. We went into a home I was put together with several others that we painted a low-income family house. All day, we painted the two-story house and the garage, and we started at 9 a.m. and we stopped at 8 p.m. So we got everything done. And these people, this couple, they were in their 80s, and they were so wonderful and so grateful for us to do that. I was never so sore after that, climbing up and down the ladders and everything, but it was a wonderful opportunity. And so if we can help maintain the presence and make people feel good about their place, that helps too.
Ms. Swedberg, thank you. Mr. Pearson, same question to you.
A good number of the points have been covered, but I'll also mention that we are extremely fortunate to have Bill Sullivan as our chief of police. Bill teaches classes in other facilities, other educational forums where he teaches about public safety and police efforts and training. So he's great. Listening to him as a member of the city council is paramount because he's the expert. We're not. He's the one who could tell us how to improve, and we need to work with him and within the constraints of the budget, give him the tools that he needs. The other one that was mentioned also is encouraging neighborhood watch programs that a few neighborhoods have participated in. Along that line, it's just something for every citizen. I talked with a gentleman who happened to be in an area. He says, I don't understand why all these people are out here in 30-degree weather exchanging laundry out of this van. And as he drove away, he realized it was a drug delivery, but he didn't report it. So I mentioned that to Police Sullivan, and he's going to be looking into it further. So those are things that everyone needs to do, is watch what happens in your neighborhood and tell the police about it if there is an issue like that. And also school safety. I know the police have been working to improve that and work with the school systems to keep all the kids safe at all times. But the biggest thing is working with the police officers and the force and Chief Sullivan. There's communication there.
Awesome. Mr. Pearson, thank you. We've got, I'm going to combine a couple more questions. We're going to start again with you and go back. We only got 2 more prepared ones. I've got some really good ones from our viewing audience, so I want to make sure I get those in. This is about the Gateway Corridor, and it's about transportation. The combined question is, what are the biggest positives and negatives about the dedicated BRT line, and what do you feel is the biggest transportation issue other than the BRT facing the city of Oakdale in the next 5 years? So 2-part question. Mr. Pearson.
The BRT has been a point of contention for a lot of people, and one of the points that I like about the BRT is the regularity of the schedule. I used to take a bus, I don't have it out, but I used to take a bus to 3M when I worked there, on times when I didn't have a car available to me, but it only ran one direction in the morning, one direction in the evening. It's not adequate transportation for anyone. I mean, it served my needs because it just happened to be going by my house, but I was one of the very small number of people in the cities that it did serve. That's the good point about the bus rapid transit. $500 million is the bad part about it. One of the things that's a big carrot for us is the bridge going over to Woodbury at that particular location. It's been wanted for 40-some years. I know because I lived for a number of years on the other side, and that would have been a short jaunt to get over to Oakdale, was right over that bridge had it existed. One of the things that came up that I think would be a good alternative to the $400 million is bus rapid transit arterial. It's actually been studied now in the last couple of years, and I know that in St. Paul they're looking at it for putting in what they call BRTA through a number of the communities in the northern part of St. Paul. It doesn't involve the additional roadway, so it's a lower cost. It does involve putting in the terminals, much like BRT does, but instead of, divide 8 miles into $450 million per mile, it comes out to be more like $4 million per mile. So depending on how that works with the federal funding to get the bridge, because that's the carrot, and then the other downside for that is the 50-year commitment to maintaining it. That doesn't fall on the federal government, that falls on local government and the Metro Transit. So there are pros and cons, and I'm not sure I answered all of your questions.
Oh, yeah, you did the BRT great. The last one is other than BRT, and maybe you answered that with the bridge, but what are the biggest transportation issues facing Oakdale outside of that bus line?
The BRT serves 4th Street, and in areas, I did a lot of traveling early in my career, which is one reason I couldn't do government service at that point, was I visited Germany and Japan frequently, and they have a wonderful transport system over there, much like in New York City, but the population density of 50 times what we've got here. Each bus line and train there serves within 3/4 of a mile, roughly, of the train. Most of Oakdale is well beyond the 3/4 of a mile to the bus rapid transit, and I know that there are plans to put in some kind of a transit system between the Slumberland facility and down to the BRT. But getting around in Oakdale is a big challenge. We have no major bus systems around the area to help the people, and I think as our population ages, that's going to become a growing need for the people here in Oakdale.
Mr. Pearson, thank you. Ms. Swedberg.
I agree with a lot of Dallas is saying. It's really hard up here at times because you hear this stuff and you're passionate about this stuff and you're agreeing with a lot of these points people are making. The BRT line will open up the job pool market for us, bringing people in that we desperately need to support all these businesses that we want and keep in Oakdale. So that's the positive. Again, the negative is the costs, and where does Oakdale's responsibility lie within all that, and how much do we put out in comparison to the state, the federal, everything else, all the other funding we can get. So the whole goal would be to obviously reduce that as much as possible. The other thing about besides the BRT, I would say is the Highway 36 and Hadley project, that redoing that whole thing. And again, though, that comes down to costs and how much is Oakdale going to be responsible for. We need all these things. That it's not a question of that, but it's a matter of how we have to be business savvy on some of this stuff and make sure we don't overextend ourselves and rob the city and become too financially indebted. So,
Awesome. Ms. Swedberg, thank you. Last but not least, Councilman Landis,
Okay.
same 2 questions.
Okay, I think when we go and look at the Gateway BRT line, the positives have been mentioned, but I'm going to say them again. It's an incredibly important piece to allow people to move from point A to point B that could not normally get there if they do not have a vehicle. I have a perfect example of a friend of mine that lives down along on Hudson Boulevard, and he's been battling cancer. He doesn't drive. He had to rely on people to go and get him from point A to point B. There's some limited bus routes, but the amount of time it takes him to get from down on Hudson Road to get to Minneapolis to go to the doctor 3 and 4 times a week is incredible. Here's a connectivity that's going to allow an individual like that to get on there, and there's going to be a bus coming by every 15, 20 minutes, make his connections from Union Depot, get himself into Minneapolis. And that's also applicable to people of all ages to get them around. I think the other part that's going to be a positive is that it's going to have another bridge option to get people from, again, Oakdale into Woodbury and Woodbury back into Oakdale. I mentioned it earlier, but when they start doing the construction redo for 494, 694, 94, that is going to be a very popular road. One other component that has not been mentioned is that the BRT coming through there is going to make street improvements on 4th Street and all the way down through Hudson Boulevard. Not only that, it's going to change the speed limit along there, the pattern of the flow, and it's going to also include a signal light, which is a safety hazard. And that's been an issue with people that live along that line right there, is the speed of people going down that road. There are many people that commute from Wisconsin that work at 3M and utilize our 4th Street and Hudson Boulevard to get into the campus there at 3M. So there's a number of positive things to it. The negative, which has already been communicated, is the cost. Not only the cost to construct it, but more importantly, the cost to maintain. And that's got to get worked out. There's federal funding on the project, state funding, and it's just a question of getting all the dollars that we can that are available through those sources. The same thing with the bridge on 36 and Hadley has been a matter of the state funding and federal. And we're being prudent to go and resource and get all the dollars that we can from both. We've been working with Washington County. They've been great with that. I want to also thank Fleet Farm for their generous donation of property to make that Hadley project work. So there's a lot of work behind the scenes, and I've been proud to be part of that.
Awesome. Thank you, Councilman Landis. I know I had the wonderful unlimited budget question, but I'm going to have to cut it. You want to put it in your closing remarks, great, but I want to get these last 2 questions in before we get to our closing remarks as we reverse order. For the last 2 questions, I'm going to start with Colleen. She hasn't had the opportunity to be the first one, so I want to make sure I give her that opportunity on a couple of these questions. These are all from the viewers and audience in attendance. A hallmark, so Ms. Swedberg, this is for you. A hallmark, it's for all of you, but a hallmark of Oakdale City Council for many years has been the ability of the council members to work respectfully with each other. We certainly know that this is not always the case with city council members. What personality trait do you possess that can assure Oakdale residents you can and will work respectfully while also defending a position you feel strongly about?
I have to do that every day at work, because I work in quality. And so you have to find a common ground. And I think this group could and would do a common ground. We have to find where we can all meet and compromise, and you might not get everything you want, but for the greater good of the city and the residents and the commercial businesses, you work things out. And I think I am good at working things out.
Good. Ms. Swedberg, thank you. I'm going to move to Mr. Pearson next for this question. I can reread it, but hopefully maybe you have the gist of it. If not, I will read it again.
I'll go without. As Colleen said, I've done that every day for work, working with a lot of different people for a common goal. I've also been going to the city council meetings for 7 or 8 years now. They all know me pretty well, and I've been in their working sessions, I go and I make comments and discuss with them things that I like, don't like, and I would have to believe that most of them say I've been fairly collegial and working with them fairly well on that. I also do a lot of things where, in outside activities, I go to fairs and talk with people who are of varying, wildly different opinions. And one of the tasks is being able to get along with them and talk logically fair and give them an opportunity to speak and you don't get into fights or arguments with them for that. It's just a normal, everyday occurrence in the life that I've chosen to live.
Got it. Mr. Pearson, thank you. Mr. Landis.
Okay, thank you. I think, the biggest thing is, what is the mission? The mission is really doing what's right for the residents of the city of Oakdale. And we're being elected to be respectful of everyone, and that starts with the council, and make decisions that are prudent for the city. We can have our differences, and that's really where I believe the workshops have come in and done a really good thing. We were able to go and sit as a group, talk about things, think through them, make discussions, have our disagreements, and at the end of the day, we come with a resolution, again, for the betterment of the city. So it's working together for the just cause of the residents of Oakdale.
Awesome. Thank you. And last question for this group of three, if we can keep it short. Now, again, I'm going to start with Ms. Swedberg in the middle. A very good observer of this event tonight said that the four, at least the three of you on this four-year seat that are here, seem to have very similar views. Is there one thing that you think may differentiate you from the people you're sitting next to, those running for the same seat? So, Ms. Swedberg.
Well, I have a partiality towards the Park and Rec Board, so I would say that I would be a strong proponent of maintaining, developing that. I see some of our parks, I'm so proud of our parks, including the Discovery Center, which I'm getting married at this week. So obviously I support it. So, but I see some of them needing to be upgraded now. So some of the road, the pathways and stuff. But then with this 3M development, housing development going on, I'd like to make sure we're a part of that, to make sure we do it right with the community and have that connection of our parks. I think we've done a great job, and I want to continue that.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Swedberg, thank you. I'm going to go to Councilman Landis next.
Okay, thank you. I think what differentiates me from everybody else is my experience. And I've read through the list, I won't go through it again, but I've got almost 2 years' experience on the city council, which is a huge learning curve. And I thought I knew pretty much everything there was with the city, being involved with it since 1995. But there are a lot of things that I didn't know that I do now today. Being involved with the environmental management as a city council liaison has been extremely helpful and educational as well. Timing of that has been actually quite good, given the fact that we've got the 3M water settlement going on, and just the care of the environment. Parks and Rec, in doing this 2 times now for campaigning, getting to know all the parks that we have, I think we have huge opportunities again, offering things to our youth in the city that we can help them mentor. So I think that just experience matters. And working with the current council has been very enjoyable, and we work together. But the key, again, is that we're working for the residents of the Oakdale community.
Thank you, Councilman Landis. Mr. Pearson.
Well, that's in juxtaposition to your previous question about collegial attitudes. But that aside, there is one thing that I heard tonight that I would be at odds with, and it's what Jake brought up about a community building. Those kinds of things are huge drains on the finances of the city, and I would be standing opposed to that. Being a research scientist often puts me at odds with those who don't have the the knowledge of science and say, people go for an emotional reaction on a lot of topics, and I sit back and say, it just doesn't work. And that puts me at odds quite often with people. So I guess I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. That's it for the questions. We're going to want a chance. We're going to go exactly reverse order through all the races on the way back. I'm going to again start with Ms. Swedberg. Then I'm going to hit Mr. Pearson, Councilman Landis, Mr. Ingebrigtsen, and then Mr. Ranke, Mayor Ranke at the very end. So, Ms. Swedberg, anything you want to say? Just a couple minutes. I want to try to keep this to 2 minutes or less as we go through and we conclude the night.
I would just find it an honor to serve the residents of Oakdale and the businesses. Together, we can find that common ground and implement and move forward with it, things that are already projected and anything new that arises. I am so passionate about it that my fiance is moving out of Grant and we are moving to Oakdale. So that is how committed I am. And he is backing me up. So he's very committed to me. So that's nice.
Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Mr. Pearson.
I highly commend your fiance's choice in transiting from that city to this city, too. One thing that you didn't mention was about what you'd spend more on, and along the lines of what Paul had mentioned, I just wanted to add, the guy's name is William Fetch. The Restorative Justice Program for juvenile offenders, it's a wonderful program, and that's one that I would definitely want to push more and get more into the schools with. Closing statement, okay, Oakdale is a great city, and people tell me that at the door, that they believe that too. They want to continue with the spirit and excellence that is Oakdale, and I welcome that opportunity to achieve that goal for you. We have wonderful cities and businesses in Oakdale that both want some needed change, and yet they want continued consistency. I've been married to my wife for close to 40 years, and I've followed and stayed devoted to my job through 4 companies. She corrected me at 41. They always keep you humble, don't they?
Yeah.
I follow through in commitment, clearly, and I want to do that for Oakdale, and I hope I've earned your vote.
Mr. Pearson, thank you. Councilman Landis.
Thank you. So why am I running for city council? Number one, and first and foremost, is because I love this city. My wife and I fell in love with this when we moved in here in 1993. I made a commitment in 1995 to be involved in as many things as I possibly could. And I want to make the Oakdale work for everybody. And when I mean everybody, I mean everybody. I want to continue our great quality of life we have here in Oakdale. And that's including neighborhood revitalization, public safety, both police and fire. Keep improving our parks and trails for all ages and needs as we continue to age, get older, and bring in young and old. Fiscal responsibility, low taxes, sound environmental management, economic development, business retention and expansion. That's in good paying jobs. We've already discussed that. I'm working hard today for the future. As I mentioned, I've got 3 grandchildren, 2, one more coming here shortly. So it's important to look forward to what are going to be the needs for the city of Oakdale. My mission has always been to serve others, and I strongly believe in that. I've always been in the service industry. Oakdale's always taken a disciplined approach with taxpayer dollars, and I'd like to continue to be part of that. In closing, I'd be humbled with your vote November 6th. Thank you.
Councilman Landis, thank you. Mr. Ingebrigtsen, you're up.
Yeah,
Back to you guys.
First of all, I want to preface this by saying that Mr. Pearson and I are friends. But I have to,
Very much so, yes.
I have to remind him that when I did bring up the community center, that question was about if you had an open checkbook, unlimited budget.
Yeah.
So please keep that in mind.
Yeah.
But I did want to say too that like Councilmember Landis, I want to serve people, and the day we put in the offer in our house for our house in Oakdale and it was accepted, I applied to be on the planning commission the same day, and 9 months later, I think it was, I finally interviewed and got on it. And I really feel that a good asset has been my time on the Planning Commission, and I'm hoping to hit the ground running. With that being said, I'm still going to ask for your vote, even though I'm running unopposed. It's a matter of principle, and I also want to encourage everybody to get out and vote, no matter who you're voting for, no matter who you're not voting for. I want to commend everybody sitting up here. It's unfortunate that even one person sitting up here, or possibly two, I don't know. It's tough that there's going to be any losers, because I know everybody up here. I have a lot of respect for everybody. So I want to commend everybody sitting up here. Sitting up here and running for public office, being an elected official, isn't easy, as I've learned tonight. So again, I ask for your vote. No matter what, get out and vote November 6th. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Ingebrigtsen. And before I get to the mayor, our final closing statement, I want to remind the audience there's also early voting available here in Oakdale, and that is here at Oakdale City Hall at 1584 Hadley. So you can come on in and cast your ballot early or at November 6th. Mayor Reinke, back to you. It seems like it's been a while since we've talked to you, but welcome back to the floor.
Thank you, Mark. You know, I'm very, very proud to have served as mayor and to have worked with the committed council, the committed staff members of the city, and the many, many, many volunteers who all contribute to make this a great city. You know, I started my business a while ago now, and I've chosen to keep it in Oakdale. And that action has allowed me to figure out and understand in a much, much more intimate way the local realities of what's going on in Oakdale. And it's reassuring, it's another prideful moment to say that we have so many good things that we can contribute or that we can offer to our residents and that we can take advantage of as residents. You know, I've been entrusted with this responsibility to help lead the city, and as a stewardship element over taxpayer funds and processes, I take that very, very seriously. Again, the honor, it's been mentioned already, the honor of serving, and that humbleness and the responsibility that comes with holding office is critical and very important, and I feel that daily. I think the 22 years of community service, more than 22 years of community service that I've been able to have with the city, ranging from Castle Elementary School, you know, I was a PTO treasurer way back, to being involved with the Citizens Advisory Commission with the school, with the fire station reviews, with the Blue Ribbon Recreation Committee, all these different elements that the city has had when they've asked people for help trying to figure out what way to go. So my positive and varied experiences, I think, are needed to help lead the city forward into the future. And so I ask for your vote and the opportunity to serve Oakdale for another 4 years. And with that, I want to say thank you once again to the Oakdale Area Chamber of Commerce and Mark Cove for the facilitation tonight.
Thank you, and thank you all. Before we go tonight, I want to thank everybody up here. It is a privilege to be both a resident of the city of Oakdale as well as a business owner in the city of Oakdale to have not only a committed council today, but committed candidates to fill these seats. And I echo the comment that was made up here already that we're privileged to have such good people that want to be stewards of our city. And I do want to also take time to thank the city of Oakdale, because the city of Oakdale dedicates and makes sure that this vehicle is available to the residents to get to know the candidates, and that's very important.